Teammates, we are back once again. If this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the number one show on innovative teamwork. Great to have you. Looking forward to having you back for more. To my regular listeners, you already know what goes down. You already know how I get down on the show. You hit the play button, which means whatever the obstacle, whatever the challenge, whatever you may be going through that you feel like is in your way of your success or is blocking you from success, we're here to indirectly tell you you are not going through it alone. And before we even get started, before I have Luana Whitmore, founder of the Next Fem. But before we get started, I want to make sure we're giving you guys a gem early because she actually dictated. We're recording this mid-November, and it was because of something she posted on her LinkedIn that dictated my post. And I made sure to start recording. So this is the first time she's seeing this too. So Luana, give me 1 second. 1 second while I show you guys this. Hold on, let me make sure my screen share options are good. Yeah, share. So this is her LinkedIn account. It says, I asked
Oh,
ChatGPT based on all that chat, what's one thing you have learned about me that I may not know about myself? And then you go to my Facebook page. I said, based on just one thing. And this is what I got, and it made me post this. So, again, I say
that's great.
you guys are in for a treat. I mean, you have an incredible story from your parents. I mean, I believe you said at one point he was actually picking cotton and the influence
Hmm.
that they've had for you. So, all that being said, welcome to the show and great to have you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to be here. And I love a surprise.
Yeah,
So
I
that's
do
great.
that from time to
I think that's great. I think that's great that you
I
saw
do.
that. I thought it was a fun post.
Yes, I do that because the thing is too, I like for people to understand that they're having an effect. And that
Yeah.
sometimes you just may not know when you're putting stuff out there. There are people listening and there are gems and there are things you're actually helping
Hmm.
folks go through in your daily life. So,
Yeah.
that being said though, I'd love to kind of get started with you when it comes to your upbringing and your background, because you had
Mhm.
mentioned in a previous show that I was listening to how much your parents actually had an effect on the
Mhm.
work that you do now. So why don't you kind of start from there, some of the lessons that you picked up growing up, and then we'll kind of go from.
Yeah. It's funny that you asked that question because my sister and I were just talking about kind of the one decision that my parents made that I think that we both think changed everything for us. And so, my parents were born in Memphis, Tennessee, in a neighborhood called Douglas, which, at one point here not too long ago had what was considered the most dangerous intersection in the country.
Wow.
In this neighborhood, and I was born there, but didn't ever live there, right? So I visited there, my family, um, but you know, the thing that my dad says a lot is what changed perspective on his future was that he was able to see outside of his neighborhood.
Mm,
Meaning that when he went, so my grandmother was a nurse's aide and she was also a housekeeper,
mhm,
his mom. And one time he went with her as she was cleaning houses, and he was looking around and said, well, what? Like, why is this different than where I live? Why do they have these things and we don't? And
right.
just that immersion into a different world for that short period of time changed his perspective. And the decision that they made that changed our lives,
Mm,
changed the trajectory of our entire family, actually, is that when my dad joined the Air Force and they moved away from Douglas, they moved to Colorado, which is where
mhm,
my sister was born. That changed the entire trajectory of everything. So my
yeah.
dad, as you said, you heard from before, when he was younger, he used to go with his stepdad to pick cotton, and they would actually get paid based on weight. And the funny thing about it is that they would urinate in the bag to make the bag heavier, so they would get paid more.
Yeah.
Um,
All right. That's actually.
and Yeah, and so, but my dad is now he has his PhD. He's a professor a department chair. My sister is also a doctor. I am finishing my doctorate. My daughter will actually be the first medical doctor in our family, and
Hmm,
so that decision that he made to move us away
yeah.
was really pivotal in how the rest of our generations will go.
Yes,
So.
I mean,
Mhm.
so much of that I resonate with because, again, like you, grew up in a two-parent household, and my
Mhm.
mother would ride the bus. I mean, she has an associate's degree,
Mhm.
Luana. She to this day, I look at her as the smartest woman I know. Ride a
Mhm.
bus because she had the presence of mind to get her CDL license and not necessarily
Yep.
like oh, I gotta go get some fancy degree, be the bus driver for Ride On. And she would tell me all the time, she would see these nice suburban houses, these houses in affluent neighborhoods,
Hmm.
and she would have this dream to say, man, I want my son and my daughter to be living in a house like that. And
Hmm.
they're in that neighborhood. And, so much of what you said I resonate with because when one person makes that decision, the ripple effect that it has on your own family. And it really
Yes.
doesn't necessarily matter necessarily where you work. It's all about your mindset. And I bring that up because you spent, I believe it was like 2 decades or something like that at a well-known company named Target. And I've
Hmm.
record talking a lot about how Target really does. They have pretty much everything. That if you want to the business model, if you want to figure out how to really run a business, Target is
Yep.
perfect case study. So well, first of all, before we get there though, can you dive in a little bit about how you ended up at Target and then we'll get into sort of some of the lessons that you learned there and then when you how you kind of built up on your own.
Yeah, so I ended up at Target. I actually applied at Target. They offered me a job,
Hmm.
and I was in my, the mid-20s, I suppose, mid to
Now
late
this
20s.
was this right after college or during
No, no, I actually worked for Merrill Lynch before, and I was a book buyer at the University of Minnesota bookstore, so I did some other stuff before that.
Mhm.
And I, at the time, I was like, that's not enough money. I'm going to go work over here. I hated that job, and I called Target back up and I said, can I please come back?
Oh,
The
wow.
offer's still open.
And
And
this was after Merrill Lynch.
yeah, this is how ended up at Target. However, my entire family actually worked there at this
Mhm.
point. So my dad worked for Target. He was a
Mhm.
group director. My sister worked for Target. She was a business analyst. My mom worked for Marshall Fields, which at the time was part of Target. So my whole family actually worked for Target before I got there.
Yeah.
It's like I was resisting something.
Right.
And so I started there in merchandising and went into technology development and then went into enterprise strategy. And so that's kind of how I moved through the company
Right.
for almost 20 years. Yeah.
Man,
Mhm.
I got to stay on that point though, because a lot of people that listen to the show, they're business owners of 20 or more employees. It's pretty much the kind of people I attract. And when you're
Mhm.
talking about aligning a business with a family and serving the family, can you just kind of give your thoughts on how business owners can really work to make it so they have a situation like yours where family members are attracted to it, where they're providing some stability for actual people and some of the things that you may like maybe the benefits or some of the things that you may have experienced seeing that so much of your family have dealt with one company and they clearly
Mhm.
have done a good job.
Yeah, I think at that time, it was almost, I don't know, indoctrinated, it's not quite the right word, but
Mhm.
Target at that time had this amazing pull. They had an amazing vision. My dad was probably the happiest there than he had ever been in any job he had before, besides the Air Force. And and I also saw that it had provided for my family quite well because my dad was there for probably 15 years. And so it just what was important, I think, was the fact that we had conversations
Mhm.
about business, about how Target ran its operations, about my sister's experience there, because she got there through an internship through an organization called Inroads that
Mhm.
supports young people of color, and that's how she got to Target. But the fact that we had those conversations about what makes a good company, what makes a good work experience, I think that was really important. It actually amazes me how little families talk about things like work, things like money, things like values and how to set yourself up to make the right decisions. It
Yeah.
is actually surprising. On the flip side of this, though, however, if you do have a business that you own that's a family business, I think you have to be aware of the pivot that's happening right now.
Mhm.
What I mean by that is previous generations were obligated to take the business once the parents left. And these younger generations do not feel that same obligation.
You're not.
And so, yep. And so, what you probably shouldn't necessarily count on is the next generation taking over when you're done and making sure that you've got the right succession plan in place. Now, where that opens up some value for folks, for entrepreneurs, is that there are a whole lot of businesses out there that are run by, the silver tsunami, that are available to be acquired, and by younger generations and people of color. So we've got definitely better opportunity to acquire businesses than we've ever had because of that.
So I was just looking at your website too before we started recording, and it has specifically, leadership or financial education for the next generation. And
Mhm.
last year, it was about a year and a half ago now, I wrote an article about Target, and it was basically I'm a teacher at a school, so there's a lot of stuff that comes in, and we have to make orders, and it was basically about that during the summer, and there was a bunch of things, and there were like stacks of Amazon boxes, stacks of this whole place was stacked with Amazon boxes. And I went to Target and I was thinking about buying something and I saw that line. I said, you know what?
Mhm.
Let me just order whatever it is I had to get on Amazon. And I'll bring that up because as you're working there, you're seeing this transition in the consumer behavior. You're seeing
For
the
sure.
in terms of what people are actually buying, how they're buying it, and people are not willing to stay in those lines like they used to.
Mhm.
So can you speak to that a little bit and how that transition led you to, say, look, it's time for LaJuana to step up and do my own thing now. Because
Yeah, yeah, what's so funny is that I was at Target during Amazon when Amazon was really getting big, when Amazon was transitioning from just selling books to selling everything.
everything,
And
yeah.
I was there. I was at Target. I recall, I'm not going to name names here, but I recall the CEO of the company at our all team meeting. This is a time where like the whole downtown Minneapolis was red
Yeah,
and khaki, and
that's
we
the headquarters, right? The
Yep,
Target.
yep. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, and so we would all, yeah, like leaders from all over the country and all of headquarters would converge at the Target Center. It was a
Hmm.
sea of red and khaki.
Hmm.
And he basically laughed at Amazon and was just basically saying it's nothing, it's never going to be anything. People don't want to shop that way. What he didn't realize, and as we're all business development consultants kind of sitting in
Yeah,
this role working
right.
for Target. We look at each other because what he didn't know at the time is that we were all getting Amazon packages delivered to us at Target. All right, so we were ordering stuff, right, and we were getting our stuff delivered to us. I mean,
Man.
so here's the lesson in this
Yeah,
is
that's a lot, please.
what Target got really really good at after that was understanding the customer.
Yeah.
Really, it's not enough to just have something that you think people are going to want.
Hmm.
Target now does an amazing job of understanding all of their customer avatars, and they have several. Deeply understanding their lifestyle, their family, like even things like do they have a cat and how and when do they feed the cat, right?
I gotta pause you there because I know
Yeah.
a business coach. I hired a business coach. Shout out to Dre Baldwin. He would regularly tell the story and on that point about avatars. I believe
Mm-hmm.
it's Karen. Karen, there was a story about how there was somebody coming to pitch Target on a
Mm-hmm.
product, and the people like you, the higher ups, were like, Karen wouldn't want this, Karen wouldn't want that,
Yep.
Karen wouldn't want this, and they're like, why don't you just bring Karen in the meeting? It's like, no, that's not a physical person. We just use that. Just use that
Exactly.
name. And when you mention Avatar, it's
Mm-hmm.
great that, and I'm so happy to have you kind of dissect that a little more because
Mm-hmm.
so many folks do get in business, and it's because of reasons that they completely lose sight of even what an avatar is. And
Mm-hmm.
you're right, Target, if there's one thing that they know what they do, know how to do, is serve that avatar, and nobody
Yep.
else. That's,
Yep.
those are
Yes.
well,
Yeah, and I think companies like Target and Apple, they are amazing at serving that avatar. And these are lessons that small businesses need to bring into
right.
their toolbox. And it's actually one of the very first things that I start every business that I consult with. We start with an avatar and we name them. And throughout our engagement, I say, would Shantae want that? Are those the colors that she wants? Because
Oh,
oftentimes we are centered on self. We got into a business that filled a gap that we saw in our day to day.
yeah,
And then we assume that there's a whole bunch of others like us instead
right.
of saying who's the actual customer and identifying them.
Mhm.
Um, and so how I kind of made my transition from Target was about halfway, 3/4 of the way through my 18-year tenure. I decided that I really wanted to work more with people. I started kind of volunteering in the community, and then I started a company that helped bring visibility to businesses throughout Minnesota. So it was a physical magazine, an online magazine that had business listings and opportunities for businesses to advertise and get promoted. And so I learned through that kind of the plight of the small businesses and how different it was. Because remember, my entire career at that point, for the most part,
Right.
had been in
Corporate,
a
yeah.
big, yeah, exactly. And what was great was I was able to bring what I had learned and what I brought from and to Target to these small businesses. And that's how I actually started kind of doing some informal consulting.
Mhm.
And when I left Target, it was to expand on that and do that full time. I didn't quite do that because I was given an offer to be a consultant at a different organization,
Right.
helping minority-owned businesses in the Twin Cities, and that's what I did for a while, and then eventually went on to do what I'm doing now.
Well, I'm
But
glad
yeah.
you brought that up because those early years, and I know it's rough, and you have to take
Mm-hmm.
huge risks. I mean, I'm sure family members are looking at you like, Luana, you're leaving this corporation, a steady check. And at this point, you have is it just one daughter?
Mm-hmm. Yep, just one
Right.
daughter.
So at
Mm-hmm.
this point, you have kids. So now it's like, look, now the responsibility and
Mm-hmm.
taking that risk is huge when you kind of putting a lot of what you're about on the line for these small business owners, and especially as you mentioned, minority small business owners. So the percentages are even smaller in terms of who you
Mm-hmm.
with. So when it comes to those early years, what did you think or what did you feel like were the biggest challenges in order for you to really build and start up on your own?
Yeah. So the first thing, I'm a planner. So my superpower is planning and strategy. That's what I do.
Yeah.
And but oftentimes in times of great stress, I over-index in that and I plan and not act. And so when I
Hmm.
was ready to act, one of the things that that I did was I made sure that I had a year's worth of salary saved up. And so I
We gotta pause it there. The men, brother,
yeah,
man. Okay,
yeah.
that
Mhm.
one hit me because I
Yeah.
have made the opposite mistake. But if you gonna start something, be responsible. All right,
Yeah.
be
Mhm.
responsible and make sure you have your stuff saved up
Mhm.
because you're gonna run into some hard times. That right
Yes.
there is somebody being responsible and saying, "Hey." Make sure it's saved up. Give myself a year, and then we could rock it up. Because a lot of
Yeah.
you brothers out there listening to me, you done started something, and now you don't got the money to put food on to pay your bills, and I got to go back to work, all that kind of stuff. So thank you for actually saying that explicitly. That's a very,
Mhm.
very
Mhm.
important part.
Yep. Yep. I also made sure that I had the skills in case it didn't work out to do
Hmm.
something else, right? So if I left my company, if I left at the time, I went on to work for Meta and then I was executive director at a nonprofit. If I left this organization to do my own thing full time, I had to make sure that at the end of that year when my money was gone, if my business didn't take off, that I had the skills to get another job.
Right.
And so there was never realistically there was never a real risk, right?
Right.
Because what I did at Target was every training program that they offered, I took. Target paid for my undergraduate degree. They paid for my master's degree.
Okay, they did.
Target, yes. So every opportunity that I got to learn and grow, and Target offered all kinds of certifications in
Oh,
house.
I had no
If
idea.
they offered it, I was sitting in that class like, what do I need to know? Right. So,
That's what's up.
and most big corporations do that. They've got all kinds of learning opportunities that people just aren't taking advantage of. But I
Right.
said, when I'm there, once I decided that I was going to leave,
Hmm.
again, this was another several years after, because I was like, okay, I got to make sure I have this and this and this. I
Right.
started putting all my ducks in a row,
Hmm.
getting the education, getting the skills, getting the certifications that I needed to get before I left. So
Hmm.
those are the things that I really did to prepare.
Yes. So talk to us a little bit about the shift in mindset because like you mentioned, you work for a pretty stable corporation and they're
Mm-hmm.
offering a lot of these opportunities. And I would imagine the folks that are there, a lot of them don't take advantage of it. But when you're working with these small minority business owners, they're like, I'm all in, whatever it takes to start the company, but they just may not know the direction of how to take it and stuff like that. So as you're leaving this corporation, now you got to go work with these entrepreneurs that are trying to figure it out. What was the mindset shift like? What was the kind of the contradictions in terms of the mindset that one had and the other one had?
Yeah. So I think that when I think about what's helpful from the corporate world that all entrepreneurs should try to understand, it would be the idea of having systems and documentation in place, right? Like, McDonald's doesn't do the things the way they do it just for, shits and giggles, pardon my language, right? It is
You're,
because it
you're
is
upset, by the way.
it's because it's cheaper for them to be able to for them to measure every slice of tomato and every slice of onion that goes on a sandwich, it ends up being cheaper for them to do that, even though it seems like it's more cumbersome for small business because they know exactly how much it costs and they can control their expenses. So having these processes and systems in place, whether it is a restaurant or you are a consulting firm,
Mhm.
making sure that you've got that stuff, those efficiencies in place and documented is super, super important. But most businesses don't have that.
Right.
Um, but a lot of people also, they when they go into entrepreneurship, they often need accountability partners. And it's interesting because I kind of question that, right? Because as an entrepreneur, there's not really anyone there to tell you it's 8 a.m., it's time to get up, it's time for you to go and contact these leads. It's time for you, like, there's no one there to tell you. You've got to be able to be a self starter. You have to be curious. You have to take initiative. Like, all of these things have to be internal. If you are constantly looking for external reason or a motivator, you probably aren't an entrepreneur. It's not a bad thing. It just is what it is, right?
Everyone's That's not everyone. Mhm.
No, everyone is not. And as soon as we as an ecosystem can get to a place where we can be honest and
Yeah.
say everyone is not an entrepreneur, then we can really start to funnel our resources a little bit more wisely.
Yeah, no, I'm
Mm-hmm.
laughing because I teach at the school named the Center for Creative Education, and I was just telling
Okay.
the president of the school, I'm like, because this is supposed to be the nurse's office, I'm like, hey, how about we turn this into the podcast room
Yeah.
before we hire him? And he goes, yeah, I don't mind you doing that as long as it's not while you're supposed to be teaching. I'm like, man, I come in early, I do this. It's supposed to
Mhm.
be my break. I've been doing this.
Yeah.
This is exactly what it is I'm doing on my off time as it is.
Mhm.
So, when you're making decisions like that and you're taking the initiative to get certain things done around whatever schedule or whatever it is you
Mhm.
do, that's when you know whatever it is for you. But like
Yes.
I said, this accountability partner thing, it's
Mhm.
really not going to be, there's nothing a human being can do for you that you're not
Mhm.
willing to go out and do for yourself. So that's
Yep.
number second point when we're talking about systems. Can you speak a little bit more on that and give a little more detail? Because systems is something that is there's some sort of return on investment. There's ROI.
Mm.
And that's another point that when we talk systems, it's not just putting together something and not seeing any return. It's
Mhm.
actually making sure you're sticking to it, just like the example you shared about McDonald's. They know how to cut their onions, they know how to cut their lettuce, they know the specific measurables, and they know where the money's coming back. So can you speak a little bit about
Mhm.
a small business that may not have the resources of McDonald's and how they can develop systems that are going to lead to ROI?
Yeah, the one of the first systems that you should think about implementing is the management of your finances.
Yeah.
And I cannot tell you how many folks I work with who have been running a quote unquote running a business for a couple, 2 or 3 years. And
Mhm.
it's not until I make them go back through all of their bank accounts and pull everything together that they even have an idea of how much money they've spent over those couple of 2 or 3 years. I actually worked with an entrepreneur. I had a clothing company, and she wasn't making very much money, but she found that she probably spent over the course of 3 years about 10 times more than what she made. And
Yeah.
she had no idea until I made her implement a financial management system.
And
So that's
then,
the
when
first
you're talking about fabric, when you're talking about like
thing.
putting and somebody tells you they want this, they may not. I mean, my cousin. He runs an urban wear company too, and
Mm-hmm.
that's a difficult thing to be a part of. Just so we're clear.
It really is. It really, and people think that things like restaurants, because it's so low barrier to entry, right? They think that they're easy to run, and they're not.
Right.
So I think that's the one of the first things I think.
Mhm.
Also, I think if you really want to kind of become efficient,
Right.
start to document the things that you do over and over and over and over and over again. How often do you do these things? And then what technology can you put in place? What can you delegate? Who can you hire? What can you hire out? And think about those ways of kind of moving some of that stuff into things that are a little bit easier and more repeatable. So if I don't like, there's rarely a day where I go through my day and I'm not doing something that I do over and over again, and I haven't figured out what the system is or
Yeah.
the technology that's going to be able to assist me to make it faster.
Yes, and we
Yeah.
actually got an example of that earlier on because I mean, 2 years, what, a year and a half ago, there was a colleague of mine who told me about ChatGPT. I'm like, come on, man.
Mhm.
I'm a writer. I write my own articles. I ain't doing that. That's that weak shit, man. And now look at me, I use
Mhm.
it, but I use it because I do so much writing as it is. So it's like, give me a few
Mhm.
ideas, give me a couple prompts, and that'll lead to the next article. That'll lead to some content. That'll lead to the work I'm willing to do. But you have to
Mhm.
embrace the technology that we live in. You have to embrace that world. And it's really important that you find the specific form of technology that would be beneficial to your business.
Mhm.
So,
Yep.
with that being said, I do want to give you the opportunity to speak a little bit about who is kind of the ideal client for you. Who's the person that, if they're listening now, that, you would love to work with and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I have two companies. The new one that's launching in December is Next Fem Financial,
Mhm.
and that is targeting women entrepreneurs who are struggling with their personal financial management. And the reason why is that there is a scientifically proven link between how well you manage your personal finances and how well you manage your business finances. And then there's a link between how well you manage your business finances and how successful your business is. So if we can get to a root cause, if we can get these women to fix and master their personal finances, they will end up with stronger businesses in the end. So that's that one.
Yeah, and
And
on
Luana
that
Whitmore
point, though, I
Consulting.
do have to mention it because my mom, she kind of got mad when I put this episode out. But there was a situation where, and I don't know, you could tell me how you feel about it too. But there was a situation where I was listening to some ladies really complain about how they were struggling. I mean, over and over. But then you look at them; they're getting their hair done every 2 weeks. They find the money to get their hair done, the nails done, and every 2 weeks. Again, I'm not against a personal appearance and doing looking good, but then you can't turn around and say, okay, I'm doing everything I need to do. And maybe I
Mhm.
said it in a different way on the show. I can't remember. It was a while ago, but you can't be telling me you're doing everything you want to do and deciding personally, hey, I'm gonna maybe not spend money on this so it looks like this on the back end. So I said it
Mhm.
before way back up because I was kind of probably a little fired up when I said it. But my mom listened to like, yeah, you might hurt some ladies with that one. You might need to tone it
Yeah.
down with your tone. I'm glad you made the link and you said it more of a
Mhm.
professional way. There's a link between that personal finances and then your business finances and how much
Mhm.
you make. So love the way you laid that out.
Yeah, because the habits that you build in your personal financial management, you will bring those similar habits into your business. And the way I figured this out is as I in Luana Whitmore Consulting, which is my consulting firm, I work with entrepreneurs all day, every day, and everything was great. And this was almost in 100% of the cases. If we're talking about product or services or customer or like everyone's fired up. Yeah, we're talking about branding. It's
Yeah,
great. It's exciting.
the
And as soon
logos,
as
all
we
that.
get, yeah, exactly. And as soon as we get to the money part, like the financial management part, I mean, it's like, people are, backing out. I mean, I've had people drop out. I've had tears. I've had all kinds of things happen. I
Yeah.
mean, and people become really disengaged. And so
Yeah.
I would start to ask, like, why is this? And the answer was always the same. I'm not good at math. I'm not good at math. This is like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, right? If you can do that, you can do this. So it's something deeper, right? And then I started looking through the academic studies and all this stuff, and I was like, okay. So what's fascinating is that people have uh, challenges with money because we don't teach it anymore in school. Not that we ever taught it sufficiently, but we really don't teach it at all anymore. Um, and or people have been taught or told that they're not good at math, even if they are. Like my daughter was one of those people. 'Cause she used to be great at math. All of a sudden, I think a teacher may have said something to her, and she's like, "I'm not good at math." I'm like, "What happened?" Um,
I mean, if we were to start that teacher conversation, we'd be on here for 2 hours because
right, exactly.
you really in my business with that one because my
Right. And
goodness, it's
so
disgusting.
right, and so then I looked at the research and I discovered this link between the things, and so then I started asking all of the entrepreneurs that were having trouble with the business finances, talk to me about your personal finances, and that's when the tears really started coming.
Yeah,
I
so
mean, people were having problems with their credit scores, they had no savings, they had no, and so if we think about one of the primary principles of personal financial management is to build up your emergency fund, build up a fund of money that allows you to take care of things in an emergency or otherwise savings.
exactly.
But what happens is we are encouraging people to get into entrepreneurship, and they have nothing. They have no savings, no emergency, no investments.
Yeah.
But having those cushions gives you better opportunities with your business. You don't necessarily have to depend on all the outside funding or this or that, or even wait for things, right? So that's kind of how it all came about, is that I was seeing this problem, and then
Mhm.
I looked at the research, and then I started asking questions, and that's how we got here.
And that's how a lot of, I mean, in my opinion, so many great things start by simply asking questions, simply
Yeah.
asking questions. And the math ain't math, and something isn't right. There's just a certain thing, and if you have to have the courage to ask. I know we're
Yeah.
talking about it, but like it is easy, but it may be simple, but it's not easy because there are going to
Right.
be things that you do need to uncover. You have to, again, peel back. A guy, I make the joke all the time. Look, growing up, love Jordans. I'd spend 200 on shoes until it was my own money. And I said, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just doing running shoes, and I'd be in, these little shoes
Yep.
that I'm using, but I haven't bought like a pair of Jordans or anything like that. I'm not going. I live in South Florida, so again, I'm not going to the club every weekend, not doing
Right. Mm-hmm.
stuff because eventually you start to realize that stuff adds up, and your business will not thrive for that. That club money could have went to this microphone that makes your business or makes it a little more professional in your podcast. Small things, man.
Right.
Absolutely
Yeah.
things.
And what you were talking about is that you understood your values,
Hmm.
and you now spend your money in accordance with those values. And
Exactly.
that's where so much of this Next Fin program is rooted in. It's rooted in mindset.
Yes.
It's rooted in history, because we spend money the way we were taught to spend money, the
Right.
way we saw our parents spend money. We heard conversations at our house like money doesn't grow on trees. That creates a mindset of scarcity. When you are operating in a mindset of scarcity, you continue to operate in that way, and that doesn't bring abundance to you. So, understanding, uncovering all of these things, starting from childhood, is what we do with this program. We start from literal childhood, and then we bring it to the present, and then we start asking, what are your values? And then once you identify what those values are, the mandate then is to spend in accordance. So you can't tell me that your values are family experiences and then go out and buy the most expensive pair of red bottom shoes on the planet. It doesn't work that way.
I work like that. Thank you. And you kind of already beat me to it though. But can you like I'll just keep you there because I was gonna ask you, what's next? What are the programs? What can people be looking out for? So, if you have anything more you want to share about it, please, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a 10-step program. It starts again, like I said, with mindset. It's all about mindset. We don't even talk about a budget or what I call a spending plan until we get through the mindset stuff, because I can hand you a budget spreadsheet. I've got an amazing budget spreadsheet that I can hand out, and it's not going to do you any good if you haven't addressed why you spend and save the way you do. So that's
Yeah.
why we start there. And then we move through how to spend, we move through how to save, and then we move through how to earn,
Mhm.
right? And so how to earn more money so that you can save more money. And then the whole thing is surrounded by a community of women. So once we open the doors to the program, you'll have access to an online community of women who are going to be participating in book clubs. We're going to read books about money. We're
Mhm.
going to talk about money twice a month in online coaching. You can also get coached one-on-one with me if you want to sign up for that level of the program. And then otherwise, you can get a peer coach inside the program, someone who's at the same level as you are, and you guys are just keeping each other accountable. So it really is like this community of women who are coming together, who all own businesses or want to,
Mhm.
and want to be successful at it by starting with their personal finances.
Right. And what's the best way for people, because there going to be quite a few, I know personally because I teach with a
Yeah.
lot of women, but what's the best way for people to get in touch with you if they want to hear more and be a part of it?
Yeah, so if they want to learn more about NextFem, you can go to nextfemmefinancial.com. That's next, FEMME financial.com. And we have a quiz, a free 10-question quiz that helps you understand your baseline. So where are you right now in your personal financial management? It's a free quiz. It's easy and quick. That'll be super helpful. And if you want to connect with me, you can search for Lawana Whitmore on Google. I'm the only one in the world.
Wow.
So,
Same way with
yeah,
As
yeah,
One Friction. You're
yeah,
not finding either one.
exactly. If you search for my name, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to have you. So,
Yes, and I mean, listen, there's so much that she said that again, that tell you listeners all the time, it's right there for you. You got to decide to run through it. People are here to give you these opportunities. It's going to be on you to actually run through these doors and make the most of it. So, Luana, the way I close out all the shows is I want you to use your imagination a little bit. You are back to young Luana. You may be just starting out at Target. You may be grudgingly going to work, or you may not like
Mhm.
whatever the situation is. You're just not happy. You don't know where the next step is. Pretend that that version of Luana has come into the Zoom room. Give her some words of encouragement, and we will officially close.
Yep, put together a plan. Plan. Businesses that plan either at the beginning or throughout are more successful, period. And so that goes for your life. Like I said, I put together a plan. In terms of getting better educated, better skills, saving my money, that it was a plan that I wrote down and I managed it on a day-to-day basis. I looked at that plan every day and I kept myself on track. Make a plan.
And she took advantage of the opportunities. I
Mhm.
mean, I learned so much about Target just in this conversation, from
Mhm.
certifications to paying for your undergrad and your master and whatever you need to be certified in. She took advantage of these things. And I encourage you, I beg you all, please, because the world needs it, as we just saw in our, with our leadership. So much of it is going to be on the people, on you, the opportunity
Absolutely.
your hands. Go take advantage of it. It's a great, great world we live in, an incredible country that we live in.
Mhm.
And, it's on you to take advantage of it. So, all that
Mhm.
being said, fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.
Awesome.